for making sure that she won and she won big. And I want to thank both of you and all of you for helping me win. I had a primary as well. I've been in the Senate now 14 years. 6 years representing this area, 14 years representing the north and east shores of Staten Island and Coney Island.
And before
And
that, you worked for
Benson, right before that I worked for the Social Service Employees Union out of DC 37. But, you know, over the 14 years that I've been in the Senate, a lot has changed in politics. You know, Ari talked a bit about how people call each other names and then they think it's okay that after the election's over, well, we didn't mean it. Words have, you know, consequences. Unfortunately, in our new political world that we live in, and I think part of it is driven by social media and Twitter. By the way, Twitter is the worst thing that ever happened to politics. It just encourages people to behave badly. Because why would anybody follow you unless you were saying something outrageous? Right? That's the problem with Twitter. When people post things and they say things, sometimes they're not only inflammatory, they're slanderous. The hardest part of being an elected official is that we are not subject to slander. You can say anything you want about me. Anything. You can call me a child molester. People have done it. You can call me corrupt. People throw around that word corrupt like it's meaningless. It's not. Those of us who decide to go into public service, whether it's at the county committee level, or at the district leader level, or at the elected level, we do it because we actually care about issues. We may not always agree on how we solve those problems, but to the extent that we are now creating an environment where there's almost a complete lack of civility, even among our own party, I think is a little frightening. So we've been through a lot of tumultuous stuff in the past couple of years. And I know there's new people coming into the process, and I think that's great. We need to encourage young people, especially, to get involved in politics. Because for the first time, we're dealing with a generation of people under the age of, I'll say 40, because you're still young under 40. Not so much anymore. Right? This is a generation who's never going to have what their parents had, and they know it. Because the deck is almost stacked against them. You know, you think about this. We are at a point in our economy right now, we are at a full employment economy. We are at the highest employment rate since the 1960s. But yet wages are flat. People are not earning as much as their parents did, or their grandparents did. And the reason for that is there's many reasons, but one of the principal reasons for it is the labor movement is at the lowest density that it has been in this country since the 1930s. That means less people belong to unions. Less people have a voice in the workplace. Less people have bargaining power in the workplace. And that has harmed people's ability to earn money. So I believe, I'm a Democrat, and I come from the FDR wing of the Democratic Party. I always have. I believe that the greatest solution to working people's issues is a strong, viable labor movement. We have seen the labor movement take a few hits in the past few years. They're always under attack, by the way. The enemies of labor never sleep. But in the past few years, we've seen some tremendous challenges to the labor movement. Most recently, a decision by the United States Supreme Court called Janus versus Afsky. I won't go into too much detail, but essentially what it was a challenge to the rights of public employees to belong to unions and a union to collect dues from their employees, from their members. And the whole point behind it was to cripple public unions. Because if you cripple public unions, which is now the largest portion of the American labor movement, you will cripple the labor movement entirely. And that was the goal behind it. And so the Supreme Court dealt the labor movement a terrible blow in June. And now we're going to see how that affects working people going forward. So what do we need to do as a party? Besides solve all the problems in Albany, which are many, whether it's rent regulations or health care issues or education funding, we need to find a way to level the playing field for unions in this state so that working people will be able to join, will be able to bargain collectively, will be able to negotiate to improve their terms and conditions. And we can do that right here in New York State. We don't need to wait for the federal government. You know, they say states are the incubator for ideas. That's where all the big ones come from. New York is a landmark state on so many issues, and some of them I'm proud to have been played a role in, Harry. Whether it was paid family leave, wage theft legislation, which I wrote, the medical marijuana program, the future of legal marijuana in New York State. We have to do it right. But we can also lead the way again on improving conditions for working people. How many people in this room have a pension? How many people would like one? We need to find a way to restore the ability of employers. Part of what we did this year, I was proud to finally pull across the finish line the Secure Choice Retirement Program, which will allow employers to utilize the state system to create retirement plans for their employees. But that's not enough. We need to find ways to create security for workers. And we also need to recognize that the future workforce, I see some of you here, you're pretty young, you're not going to work the way we did, a 40-hour week working for the same employer for 30 years. We have to figure out how to address the issue of what's called the gig economy. And that's young people who want to move from employer to employer, but need the portability of benefits so they have the security that their parents' generation had. That, I believe, is the challenge for us in Albany. I believe that's part of the challenge of the Democratic Party, is to stay true to its roots, which is to be the party that benefits the many at the expense of the few, and that we find ways to make sure that people have security in the workplace, in their neighborhood, in their community, and we do it, I will finally end on this, by working from the grassroots up, building clubs, and getting them involved in local politics. So I want to thank you all for helping me over the years, and I want to thank you for helping other elected officials, particularly people like Ari and Margarita, because those who do it for nothing deserve more credit than those who do it for getting paid. Thank you. On the other side of the bridge, the north and east shores of Staten Island. On this side of the bridge, Coney Island, Bensonhurst, Bath Beach, Brighton Beach, a little tiny piece of Sheepshead Bay, and a little tiny piece of Bay Ridge. Piece of it. So Senator Golden and I split Bensonhurst. We kind of split everything, actually.
We'll talk about
yes. Well, she's there right now.